Hello, and welcome to Mind Your Head, a space for people to share their stories, talk openly and honestly about their own mental health challenges, and to give some listeners some comfort in knowing you're not alone. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we record this podcast, the Gubbi Gubbi people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples. We honour their enduring connection to the land, waters and culture, and recognise their invaluable contributions they make to our communities. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Mind Your Head, Blair. So stoked to have you on the podcast today. I think I mentioned it before at the pools. I'm a big fan of your work. I've been following you for a while now, and I really love what you're about and what you do.
I appreciate that, mate. Look forward to chatting, and I appreciate being here. So keen to get dug in.
And I think first off, I really like what you do. When a stranger sits down with you, you have a little note jar and you say, you can see they're a little bit flustered or a little bit anxious or nervous, and you say, hang on a second, before you start, just grab a note. So I'm going to do that with you today.
Yep.
So I've got...
oh, look at you go. Here we go.
So I've got my... Jordan, who you just met. Jordan wrote something like a sort of a favourite quote or something that she lives by. I got my mum and dad, and I got a couple of friends that have written stuff down. So this is for you, mate. Choose something out and give it a read.
What we got here? Fear defeats more people than any other one thing in the world.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that hits.
That hits?
Yeah. I went straight to when I first started doing my chats, and I think I had the equipment bought for about a month before going down there, and I made every excuse under the sun not to go down there. I had it all ready to go. It was in my car all waiting to be set up, and, it was every excuse. Like work's going too late, the weather's not great, whatever it might have been. And then when I finally built up the courage to go down the first night, I saw everyone going along there was fucking hundreds of people going along this track here, and I was like, nah.
No way.
So I drove home that night and I was like, can't do it. Like, just a fear of judgment. It was just like, there's going to be this everyone's going to be like, there's this tool just sitting here on a park bench in front of everyone talking to himself on a camera and a tripod set up. Like, what? And I was like, nah, can't do it. So I drove home, and then as soon as I got home, it was like instant regret. I was like, that's not it. Like, you've been preparing for this. It's something you want to do. It's something different. Like, you need to go for it. And then I was like, all right, so tomorrow I'll go down. And I, got all ready and went down the next day, and then I set up, and then as I was still setting up, and I was still figuring out where to put my mics and where to put the setup and everything, because it was my first time, and granddad and a little granddaughter came and sat down, and she shared a little story about her catching a barrel out in the surf when they were up from Sydney, and from then it was just like a light switch moment. It was just like, fear of what? Fear of judgment. Everything that I was thinking in my head was 100 times worse than what. People were just curious. They were just interested. It's like, I haven't seen someone sitting at a park bench asking to talk to strangers before. So, like, this is cool. I like this. Yeah. Like, I'm going to have to, couple glances over and looks and be like, oh, this is cool. This is different, and keep walking. Whereas in my head, I was like, oh, like, they're going, oh, look at this idiot. Like, look at this tool. And I'm like, everything's just, like, amplified in your head. And then as soon as that first conversation started, and it was just human connection, it was just 2 people or 3 people, whatever it might have been, just chatting and just sharing that experience. With everything stripped back, it was just like this freedom. It was just like
all that fear went away.
Just instantly, it was just the fear of judgment had disappeared, and then coincidentally enough, there was like 6 or 7 people that night came and sat down and shared their stories, and it's the most I've ever had.
On your first night?
On my first night, and that was to me the universe's way of saying, hey, like, you're onto something here, you're doing something really good, like there's a space for this. And ever since, it's obviously been a hit, and brings me a lot as well. So
what has been your relationship like with fear? I mean, for me, we spoke about it a little bit before, like playing rugby. I think fear held me back a lot in life. I think, I did achieve a lot playing rugby, but I still felt like I didn't achieve as much as I should have due to that fear of failure, or even the fear of success, and fearing my potential or what I could achieve in life. And then also, it affected me a lot outside of footy, because I knew that I was good at it, and I didn't want to try anything new, because 9 times out of 10 when you try something new, you're terrible at it. And that fear of being shit and judgment and ridicule really, really held me back in life. And even doing, like, starting this podcast a couple of years ago, I've never done this sort of stuff before, and I was like, what are my mates going to think? What are people going to think when I'm talking about sort of, mental health topics and being vulnerable? And then as soon as same with you, as soon as I did that first episode and then I sort of released it, the flooding of like comments and people messaging me, like strangers, but also friends that I've been with, friends for years, opening up to me about things that they've never spoken about, yet we're pretty close friends. And that just shifted my whole thing. And I think I had the same sort of feeling with you as when I finished it and done the first episode, I was like, this is the best feeling ever. I love this. What's your relationship like with fear? Was that the first moment that you felt like, oh yes, like I can let it go?
Yep. Yeah, a few things I'll unpack there with you. Firstly being, it's this, like when you release it, and like whether it's mental health, anything you do in life, is the human brain internally, as ourselves, we want to focus on the negatives rather than positive. So you would have initially been like, if I release this and do this thing, everyone's going to be like, oh, pick up on something I messed up, or I didn't do great, or, I didn't look right, or I didn't sit right, or whatever it might have been that you approached it. In your head, you were just like, every negative you could have thought. It was just like, what this, what that. And then it's so little, we're like, what if it goes really well? What if, I don't have to have all the answers? What if I make mistakes and that's great? What if I learn from those things? What if I release this and everyone goes like, you did it. Like you started something, like it's not going to be great to start with, but that's going to develop and you're going to get better. And that's it. Just this weird relationship, especially with, we'll always find ways to highlight the positive things in other people. But when it comes to ourselves, we want to find all the negatives and the negative impacts of things that we're doing. And then that all, goes back into the fear of judgment. And there's like 3 parts there. It's like when been seen lately, I've been doing some research and looking at things, is when kids, they mimic their parents. And a lot of the time they won't fear things. Like I saw this video the other day, and it was this study, and they had all these like little toddlers, not sure how old they were, not very old at all, but they put these massive harmless snakes in there that had been trained with it. And these kids were just grabbing the snakes and lying on the snakes, and there was no perception of fear in that, because they didn't know what it was. They'd never been told. There was never this outside noise of what it should have been, or, society or their parents. And there's just this thing that kids mimic the behavior of their parents. So if a kid's younger and they fall over and trip, and the parents is like all worried and like, oh my God, like, and that's when the kids cry and stuff. But when like, the behaviors of their parents like mimic, oh, you're okay, you're tough, you're strong, take a deep breath, we're good. They're like, oh, like I'm good, like I'm sweet. And then I think from all that is you learn from the environments, and you are a byproduct of your environment, obviously, but you move on to that. And the biggest thing that I relate to with that is with school and sport as well. I played at a high level with AFL as well, and those environments correlate. But when you're in school, you put a mask on, a facade, you try and fit into groups and social norms and be someone you're not, to be considered cool, or because that's what high school was. It was all these groups of different people and
like that status,
hierarchies and status, and you would change who you were to mold and fit and shape into the standards that someone else sets and whatnot. And then we hide who we are, like I said. So then it comes to these things later in life, and you hold all that fear of judgment and that fear of not fitting in, because you've had to do those things, and you've hidden your authentic version of yourself in that vulnerable state. Because especially for a lot of us, I'm not sure how it was for you, but me being 24 when I was back in school, was a lot of social media as well. And a lot of plays into that. You might get a video taken or something happen, or you try and express yourself in a vulnerable state, and then kids are kids and bullying and everything like that, is it all gets shared around, or people say something, then people laugh at you like you see in the movies, whatever that might be. And then going a step further too with football is, like you said, it's everyone's there to play football or play a sport. They're there for a common goal, but often we hide who we are based to fit in with the higher up people in the team, or trying to hold spots with selection, and it all interlopes with each other. But fear of judgment is a hard thing, because you're exposing your vulnerable and authentic self. And one thing I've learned is that's your superpower. It's such a hard thing to express and put out there because of the fear of judgment and the thought of what other people think. And then on top of that, we all internalize that and make it, look at all the negatives and make it 10 times worse. And
what it is,
focusing on the what ifs in the positive ways of people reacting, like you said, to your podcast and what I did, and just put yourself out there in a different light.
There was no social media when I was at school. I was extremely lucky that.
I was like,
I think you're just saying it in a polite way. I think year 12, I think Facebook, I think MySpace was just coming through. So yeah, I was lucky I had none of that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite quote or saying that you live by, or something you go back to in times of struggle?
I like a few, like, you know, it can be a shit day but not a shit life and stuff like that. And I've got some longer story forms and whatnot, but we'll come back to that question when I can think of it. But
Yeah, we'll come back to it.
A mind blank with that one at the
That's
minute.
all right.
But yeah, it's one I hear a lot and I ask a lot.
Yeah.
It's something I need to put more time into. But I definitely live by a lot of things I hear, but to narrow it down to different things.
Yeah. I think the one that I've really latched onto the last couple of years is life is coming from you, not at you. And for a lot of time, I mentioned to you earlier that I sort of got into a really dark place in my life where things weren't planning out how I thought they were going to plan out, and I was blaming all these external things for the reasons that my life wasn't planning out the way that I planned out, and never looked inwards at all. Always blamed everyone, thought I didn't have control of what I could control, and that quote there just really affirms home to me that, you know, if you look at it two ways, like your perception of reality is your reality. So how you perceive life is how you're going to see it. And for so many years, I was like this victim, and it just held me back so much in life where I just thought everything was happening to me. Everything has happened to me. I didn't realize that everything was actually happening for me. All the injuries, all the setbacks, and all the negatives, all the failures that I perceived as bad were actually like putting me in a new direction that was actually going to be beneficial to me in the future. But in the short term, I was just like fighting it. I kept fighting it. And now, and even like my perception of failure was really, really bad. But now I always look at it as an opportunity. Like, instead of, if something doesn't go to plan, I'm like, oh, sweet, maybe I'm meant to be doing, maybe it's putting me in this direction, and more leaning into it rather than trying to fight it, trying to resist it.
Yeah, we live in a day and age where we're shamed for making mistakes a lot of the time, especially in a sporting path, an elite sporting path, an environment is, as you know, you generally, if you make a mistake or something, it's generally put out in front of the whole group, or put into a group chat or whatever it might be, and addressed in a public setting. Whereas, like, things that I've learned is, like, you take so much shame when you're younger from making mistakes, but they're our biggest lessons. You know, they're absolutely our biggest lessons. And when you learn not to be shamed by them and just understand that, all right, you know, I might have fucked up there or I might have made a mistake, but, like, look what I've learned. You know, I'm not going to do that again because I know that this is the outcome and this is what comes from it. Whereas, there can be beautiful ways that you can harness, you know, using mistakes as great learnings and then, you know, carrying that through. And I think we've still got so much growth in society and in leadership roles to be able to harness that in a positive light rather than, you know, in exposing it in a negative light. And I think if we can do that, it's a really powerful thing because, like you said, our greatest, you know, mistakes and our downfalls are our biggest, you know, lessons and stuff that we take.
Yeah, 100%. We sort of veered off a little bit, but I sort of want to get to your life and how's it going now? I mean, like, a little bit different from this time last year, you reckon?
Yeah, even 8 months ago. Like,
it's
only been 8 months.
Yeah.
So, it's bloody crazy, man. But that's the beautiful thing is life can change in an instant, can't you? Like, and it's just, I couldn't picture my life any different now than, like, but I'm so, like, grateful and blessed, but, like, to think that you can do one thing that's unique and just a little bit different and then everything changed, like, and, like, I can't even sit here and be like, oh, I know what, like, another 6 months is going to look like or another 8 months, like, I can't even comprehend, but it's just, like, all set in motion by one little action of doing something different outside the box and something, you know, one of my favourite things to say is, you know, if you do things for the right reasons, the right outcomes will come of it. And it's just like, it's putting money aside, it's putting all the other things aside and going, hey, if I do this for a reason that lights me up inside and has a positive effect on others, then good things will come from it. And that's what's been the case in this instance.
It's pretty crazy. So talk to me about this journey and how it started for you, and where did the idea come that you wanted to sit down with strangers and have a chat?
Yeah, look, I don't know, to be honest.
No,
I do know, but it's a weird one. It was just, I think I saw a video one day of a guy, and he'd sat down and he was playing music through like a DJ set and had a sign that said, like, if you're having a bad day, like, but my personal opinion was that interaction was faked. It was like
pre-planned.
You could see that she's like,
Yeah.
oh, act surprised and like having a bad day, and like
Yeah.
you could see it wasn't authentic.
Yeah.
So a good reason, good thing, but in my own eyes, that was like, hey, he's doing it for likes or followers, or with the social media is instant gratification overnight to have a viral video and whatnot. But it didn't have the same authentic value and outcome to be good reason for doing it. So then I was like, I've always been one that didn't want to go to uni or didn't want to do a trade and wanted to be outside the box kind of thing. And like, whether it's business or whatnot you surround yourself or you do something and you learn off others. You go to someone that's successful in that business, and instead of going to uni, getting a degree, you go, hey, can I do a free traineeship and I'll like learn off you and get your stuff. And I was just like, my big thing was hindsight before the fact. And it's something we can never get, but we can try and take little bits from it. So I was like, if people are going through, like, I hadn't lost anyone either at that time, so like close to me to death and that kind of stuff, and that ties into I've got this deep-rooted fear and anxiety around death and dying and what comes after it, and I've always had anxiety and breakdowns in the middle of the night and panic attacks of what happens, and since I've started this, it's very much lowered, but going into that is if I haven't been through losing someone or grief or death or what comes next, I've been really lucky, but it's around the corner, and how am I going to deal with it? How am I going to, what patterns of behaviours I'm going to see myself that I won't realise, and I'll isolate myself off from the world and all these things. And it was just like, if I can go learn from a complete stranger that's been through that, and we all live in our own little bubbles and don't realise what's going on, but, this person's just going for a walk on the beach and, they've got the most crazy story you'll never even know about if anyone hadn't asked. And it was just like, hey, if I can give a opportunity for someone to share a bit of their advice and a bit of their story and feel validated in their own version of themselves to share that, then hey, when I go through it or when someone else goes through it, that if I'm able to share that with them, that they take a little bit of that 1% or that hindsight before the fact and go, hey, I'm going through it now. They got through it. I remember the quote that they said or the advice that they give, and it sits well with me now, and I kind of take that on my journey, my own path. And yeah, it's developed into a lot of different things with, obviously we feel like we're a burden to our friends and family, so we don't share and we don't indulge in the mental health space and talk about our feelings. But when it comes to a complete stranger, you've got nothing to lose. There's no bias. There's no, hey, you're a good or bad person. Is this your side of the story or theirs? Or what have you done with your life? It's just, hey, like, how you feeling? What's going on? What's your story? I'm here to hold space and listen, just dump. And then it's just like, I have so many people that come that just like, feel like they're so weighed down and they're stepping in mud and they leave like a floating fairy, and it's just like you can't explain it other than just the burden, the weight taken off their shoulders by just having someone hold space for them to just dump what they haven't been able to say off. It's just the energy just shifts.
Can you feel that and see that after you've had the chat?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, one of the ones I'll always look back to is like one of the first ones on the first night, and Mel came and spoke about how she had lost her brother who he'd hung himself. He had a heroin addiction and went to jail and a few other things, but he carried a lot of guilt because he was drowning when they were younger on a family holiday, and their dad went to save him and got him out, and he ended up drowning.
Oh, wow.
So he carried all this burden through his whole life that he was the reason his dad died, and then he got into drugs to deal with that. Back then there wasn't, there's a lot of stigma around mental health, so the easiest route out was to turn to drugs and do that, and that ended up with him in jail, and then he ended up hanging himself. And she spoke about her mental health journey and what she'd been through and how she wishes that he was still here, and she spoke about that. And yeah, she'd walk past the path and she was like so standoffish. She was like, there was some part of her somewhere going like, go sit down, like you need this, but everything in her own body was telling, hey, don't go over there, don't go. She was so far off the track, and she's like, oh, like, how long do you need? Oh, what's this for? Like, what do I have to do? And
just tipping the toes in a little bit
there. Yeah, but like something deep in her was like, you need to go share your story, whatever it might have been. You need to just sit down. And then I was just like, it's just about talking to strangers and sharing their experience with maybe losing someone or something like that. And she goes, oh, it's like, it's really fitting that you said that, because like I've got this story, and she shared that, and like she was like so heavy and so weighed down, and by the end of us sitting there for 25-30 minutes talking about it, she got up and she was big smile on her face. I gave her this hug and she just felt free, and it's something that you have to see and feel to understand. I can't really say it, but yeah, it was incredible.
How does that make you feel?
Fucking on top of the world.
Does it?
Like, I get it all the time, and everyone's like, "Oh, you do so much for other people," and I'm just like, "No, like they do so much for me." Like if I'm having a bad day, I've had a massive day at work, I'll go down there and I don't know what it is, but for complete strangers to be vulnerable and authentic and open up their heart and soul to you with no strings attached and just say, "Hey, this is me, this is my story. Like I hope it helps someone." You're just like, "Fuck, this feels amazing."
It's like almost an honor and a privilege that they get to share that story with you. And sometimes I think about it too, that like you might be the only person in their life that they get to talk about these things to. Like what an honor it is for you to hear this from them.
Exactly.
Crazy. So why do you think it's reached so many people and gained so much interest? Is it, you talked about, is it that genuine authenticity? Is it, the vulnerability? Is it, people are relatable? Like they're not, social media influencers. They're not got a high profile. They're just regular people like you and me.
And that's the thing is, like, as a social media world, we've indulged in people getting things for the right reasons, but then go and find the biggest celebrity they can to show off their stories to hope that they gain more traction and more. Like, it's just the way it is. Like, and the thing is, 99.9% of the population will never be able to relate to that person because they've got all this money, they're in this position, and yes, they might have a story like the regular, but they'll never be able to relate in that sense. So having someone that's just going for like their afternoon stroll or run along the beach or bike ride and just says, "Hey, this is me, this is my story in its entirety, here's my heart and soul, and I'll be vulnerable and authentic," is so powerful. But the biggest reason I think it is as well, because we've got charities and stuff do amazing work, and non-for-profits, yes, and all that psychiatrists and mental health professionals, they do amazing work. But they all, most of the time, not all of them, most of the time, they have to offer advice. They have to give foundations and way to improve and do this and that, and which is great. But what I do so different in the fact that I just listen. I don't say, "Hey, you should feel like this," or "You should feel like that," or "This is where you should be," or "What you should do next." It's just, "Hey, like, I'm here. This is your space. Like, speak." And a lot of the time, people don't get that opportunity because, like I said, they don't want to be a burden to their friends and family, so they don't offload. And then who else are they going to do it with? Like, it's just not there. So for them to get a space and an opportunity for someone to go, "Hey, like, I'm not interested in anything other than like your story," and just holding space for you. And people go like, "Holy shit," like everything that's weighing me down, all the stuff that I feel judged to talk about with friends and family or different things, or there might be bias there. It's just, there's none of that. It's just, "Hey, this is me, this is you." Just we're humans connecting. Just tell me your life story. Tell me what's going on at the minute. Tell me your best advice. Help other people. Like, it's just holding that space, and that's why I think it's done so well.
Yeah, and I can definitely relate to that because when I was going through those rough days, same feeling. Didn't want to burden mum and dad, friends or family, anything like that. I found so much peace in going and seeing a psychiatrist, because they're a stranger. They're not going to worry about Elliot. They're not going to go home and worry about Elliot, or because some of the things I was saying and some of the things I was feeling was quite dark and depressing, and I felt so much peace going to them because I was like, "Oh, well, they're a complete stranger. They don't know me. They don't know my story. I can just go to them, offload and go home." Whereas like thinking about mum and dad or my friends or family, I'd feel like they'll start treating me differently. They'll start sort of, showing me all that sort of sympathy and all that sort of stuff. And that was my fear of like getting treated differently. Don't treat me differently if I'm going through something. Treat me normal, treat me the same, but just understand that I'm going through a rough time at the moment. So yeah, I really latched on to talking to a stranger. And that was like my sort of outlet for a while. And then that was like my foot in the door. And once I sort of released it all and like got off all the weight off my shoulders and I could actually, be comfortable sharing it, that's when I sort of turned to mum and dad and my friends and sort of had that open dialogue that I don't think I would have had if I didn't go to that stranger and have a chat to him about it. So I can definitely feel it, yeah.
100%. And it's a balance because, some psychologists are really good and they sit there and they'll listen, and then, I've had a lot of experiences where they're not so good, and for them, there's always an ulterior motive. It's like, it's their job. They've got to get paid. They're there. They might not, like, I'm choosing to be there in my own free time after work. Like, there's no strings attached. It's like, "Hey, yes, I want to use your, like, the video to share to people, to give, to validate your own feelings and help other people out there." But other than that, it's just like something that fills up my cup. and there's no strings attached. So it's just like, hey, like this is your space. Whereas if you go to a psychologist, oh, you know, there's $200 for an hour, and then as soon as the hour's finished, you're gone, you're at the door, and someone else is in. Whereas it's just like I've sat down there for like an hour and a half, and just like until they're completely finished, and they're like drive any words, and they feel so amazing, and then I'm just like, all right, you know, they're like, oh, I'm ready to go now. Like, oh, okay, sweet. Like there's no like rushing people. There's no saying, hey, like
you're on a clock or anything.
Like you're holding other people up from sitting down. Like you've got to leave now. There's none of that. It's just like, hey, like this is your space. Like use it how you want and say what you want.
Have you always been a good listener? What makes a good listener? Because it's more complicated sometimes, or it could be more simple. But I think a lot of people get it wrong. How to be a good listener.
Two biggest things I will say is eye contact is huge.
Yeah.
If someone's bearing their heart and soul and being vulnerable, and I'm looking off every 3 seconds to someone that's walking on the bike path and looking over there, and you know, eye contact's a form of vulnerability in our own self and intimacy. So as soon as when we're uncomfortable or we don't think we can hold something, we look away. We're like, oh, like I'm over here now, like so then I can take myself out of the situation. Then I'll come back momentarily, and then I'll go out again. Yeah. Whereas what I do is I hold that eye contact. I've held it for like an hour straight, with maybe 1 or 2 little slip ups, but an hour straight, and then you'll get people go like, "Oh, I actually feel you listening." Like you're not saying anything, but I know that what I'm saying you're actually taking in.
Yeah.
And the second one is people listen to talk themselves. They're always waiting for the pause in the sentence where they go, "Oh, well, this is how I feel. Oh, this is what I'm going through. Oh, my situation's worse than that." And what that does is that doesn't validate someone else's feelings and opinions and what they're saying, because you're then taking their experience and trying to one up it. It's always competitive. It's always ego driven. It's always like, oh, hey, like that's great, but now look at me, look at my story. Oh, I did that way worse. And then at the same time, it's also like you're not listening because you're thinking about what you want to say in your head the whole time. You're like, you're not present in that conversation. And I've had so many amazing things happen where I've just like minute pause in the conversation. And I haven't dived in and gone, oh, that's great that you share that now. This is my advice and this is my opinion. It's just you sit there and you wait, and they go 3 levels like deeper. They're like, and then they get it out because they've had that space provided where they're just listening. You're not forcing anything. You're not saying, oh, hey, like this is, you just leave it open, and then they go even deeper because they feel like you're just holding that space and you're actually listening. So what they're saying is valuable and they can get it out, if that makes sense.
100% makes sense. That's what I've learnt doing this too is I've always struggled with a bit of head noise. Always, that I struggle being present in the moment. I remember like being a kid and sitting and watching a movie or sitting watching TV, and I would have like all this anxiety about school tomorrow or the game on the weekend, and I just couldn't relax in the moment. I couldn't just sit there and just watch a movie. My mind would be thinking about other things. And what this has done for me the last couple of years is that my mind can't go anywhere else. Otherwise I lose attention. I lose the guest. I'm lost, like that. So this has been my form of like, my remedy or therapy where I feel really calm and relaxed doing this, and my mind doesn't wander. I'm so focused on sort of what you're saying. So this has been sort of so helpful for me in my life.
100%. Once you realise that it's just 2 people talking, like, yes, there's cameras on different bits and pieces, but once you actually be able to hold a space and learn how to hold a space, it's just 2 humans connecting. It's the most purest form of anything, really, and it makes it so easy and comfortable. And like your vibrations and your effect rubs off on your guest, or if I'm sitting at the table, if I'm like all frantic and all over the place, like that's gonna rub off them in the way that they're feeling and acting. So,
do you pick up an energy quite easily?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Do you? Have you always been like that?
I wouldn't say always, no. But that's growth as a person, as a human yourself, and maturing and realising and experiences. But yeah, I'd say I'm in a good place now with it.
If you're happy to share, what are some of the toughest things that you've faced, either emotionally, mentally, physically, that has helped you, connect with these people? Because I don't know if you're familiar with Brené Brown. She talks about vulnerability, and she talks about shared struggle and the ability to hold space for someone on that same sort of energy. She talks about having gone through, similar situations or similar feelings and experiencing certain, tough situations. What have you gone through, if you're happy to share?
Yeah. So For me, a couple of things that stand out is, as you know yourself, with an elite sporting background, is I grew up playing AFL at a high level, a lot of sport at a high level, and then I looked to get drafted to play AFL, and I call it it's like footy depression. Honestly, it's like I just isolated to footy because that was the source of where it was coming from. But growing up, not knowing my passion or what I wanted to do, and because I was so good at football, everything got poured into that one cup. I didn't have an identity away from football. Everything was attached to football. So if I had a bad game on the weekend, I was a shit person for a week until I got the opportunity to redeem myself, the next weekend and be like, oh, if I have a good game, I'm a good person. And if I have a shit game, I'm a bad person. And everyone's going to be looking at me going, oh, they're a shit person. Or did you see your stats on the weekend? Like everything was attached to that. And I found out in my journey with football that everywhere and everything I was doing was based off football. It was like, why are you in Queensland? Why are you in Adelaide? Why are you doing this job? And I was like, oh, because, I'm trying to get drafted. I'm doing it because of football, but I was never doing it for Blair. And it was this concept that I didn't have an identity away from football. There was no Blair. There was just Blair, the AFL footballer. And that carries a lot of pressure and a lot of weight, especially on performance. So I wasn't able to perform, and I ultimately probably didn't get drafted because I was in a state of having so much pressure on one thing and having a cup so full in a negative way, trying to perform and trying to please other people and trying to be this person and this ego and this footballer and have these stats and all these things all tied into one, that the Blair over here was suffering because there was no identity and it was all over here. So that's something I had to battle and deal with, and I went through a lot of years of playing shit football because everything was about football. Everything that I was doing was for football. And then I spoke to a sports psych and we basically isolated that, hey, there's no Blair here. That's just Blair the footballer. And then I started to shift around priorities in life and what mattered to me the most. And I started to, one of the first ones was Bottle Top's, my clothing brand that I had for a little bit. That I started during COVID. That was it was all made from recycled plastic bottles, and it was all about the environment. And for me, I've got this, anxiety and fear around death, which has probably been the hardest thing I've had to deal with. It flows into everything else and is a reason I do a lot of things and why I am the way I am, is that, if I can impact others and leave behind something or have positive change and impact on people, then it would fill up this cup of this constant, what's the purpose of life? Why do you live if we're just going to die? If I can't leave behind a legacy, or I wasn't bigger than myself, or whatever that might look like, then did I really live a worthy life, or did it matter that I was even here? And that's the thing that I struggle with a lot, and I've got a lot better since doing these chats and having this life that's going down this path, but it's just this constant battle of what's life? Why do we get all these incredible... And I think it's because I've got this high in life. I love life. I love people. I love interactions. I love so much about life that it's just this constant struggle deep down in my own head that one day, it all gets taken away, whether, and it's a fear of unknown. We don't know what we leave behind. We don't know what happens after death. No one dies and comes back and be like, oh, this is what happens. And it's beautiful that so many people have got religions and different ways they look at life and what happens and reincarnation, all these things. But I suppose for me, I'm still working out my path of what I think happens and what's next. So it's this constant battle of trying to, be okay with the unknown, and instead of filling up and feeding that cup of depression, anxiety around dying, it's like, all right, I can impact others, I can hold space, I can share experiences, I can go around the world and travel and experience, and then, hopefully, I've impacted enough people's lives and I've made a difference that when's all said and done, that, I was a good human and I had an impact, and people will, remember me in that sense. And then, I flow on the effect of that is the biggest gift anyone you can do in life, in my personal opinion, is have kids and leave half of you and half of someone else. That's your legacy. You make a better version of yourself and you give them all the tools to live, and that's how you live on in this world, is you pass it down through people and your values and morals and your personality, and then they're an enhanced version of that. So my whole life's this constant battle of trying to even the playing field with that depression and the anxiety and the fear of death to get the most out of life, impact as many people as I can. And whether it was, doing the bottle tops and trying to the eco-friendly and work with charities, to then, where I am with Through Strangers' Eyes and impacting people and sharing shared experiences and whatnot, is it all flows into why I am the way I am, and I suppose that being my why to life. And being present and just having shared experiences
Yeah.
and having an impact.
Are you better at being kind to yourself and putting less pressure on yourself?
I don't think any of us are any good at that, are we? You know,
we're
all trying.
I'm definitely better than I was when I was playing footy. Like,
for sure.
everything that you said resonated so well with me because I lived and died by my last performance. So if we won a game, we all won a game. But if we lost a game, Ellie lost the game. You know, I would always blame myself for the loss, but never give myself credit for the win. It was just like, it was just a roller coaster. You know, roller coaster of like, worthless, we won, all good. Sweet, I'm top of the world. And I went back, I actually saw a sports psychic as well, and it went back to not putting my identity through the wins and losses and the games on a Saturday or Sunday. It was putting, holding value to my intentions through the week. So, you know, if I'm big on preparation. So if I know in myself that I've done all the preparation during the week, you know, recovery, eating well, train well, did all those things, all the mindfulness, mindset stuff that it was sort of coming in later to when I was sort of playing. Whatever happens on a Saturday, happens on a Saturday. And, you know, and that really, really helped me because when we'd lose, because obviously you lose in sport, that I would look back and go, nah, well, I ticked all these boxes during the week. I'm happy for what happened, who I was during that week. We'll just try to get better next week. And I wish I had that mindset, like, you know, that was sort of later when I was sort of 28, 29. I wish I had that mindset at 21. It would be interesting to see how I would have developed as a footy player. But, I mean, that's hindsight that we talked about.
It's constant hindsight before the fact, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just like, that's why these spaces and these rooms and shared experiences and conversations are so powerful, because if you can take, you know, even if it's 1% of someone else's journey that they've been in your same shoes, that it holds you in good stead for, you know, might make you second guess a certain situation or a certain decision. And yeah, like, completely going off what you were saying, it was this full shift in priorities in life. I'd found purpose and value outside of football. In the time, it was a clothing brand, and being excited about that and going, all right, there could be a path here for me and a passion outside of football and getting drafted, because that's all I knew and that's all I had drawn dinosaurs on my exams at school because, you know, it was going to play football. It was, you know, that's what I was doing. So it was just like,
did the same.
Get to it. You just like, everything was in one cup because you were so young and so immature, and so, you know, it was just tunnel vision on football. There was no who's Blair, the person kind of thing. So once I was able to shift my priorities away from football, then, you know, even this year I look at how I'm in such an incredible place as a human being and as Blair, with, you know, now with my partner, with Through Strangers' Eyes, with stuff away from football, that, like I said, football is 2 hours on a weekend and I really enjoy it, win, loss or draw, and it doesn't define who I am as a person. Yeah, it's just this beautiful hindsight and growth to just go to the fact that, hey, like, where I'm in a really good place away from football, that I can enjoy football and actually enjoy it. It's not my identity is not based on football. So if we have a shit game, and then going back to what you were saying before, is just like, in losses you would, like we were saying earlier, in losses you would identify the negatives and enhance them even bigger. It was just like, we lost, it was my fault, I did this. And then even in the wins, you would still, it's interesting because even in the wins I find it funny, even in myself, when we won, I would justify that I played better than I did because we won and it was a positive outcome. Like, I could have had a shit game, be like, oh, I did these things well and I did that, and we won. But if that was the same situation flipped and we'd lost, it would have been like I was picking out all those things, being like, no, this is why we lost, this is why we're shit. And it's just this weird contrast of negatives and then the positives, and then turning positives and negatives and positives, like this loop. And it's just like, yeah, but no, I'm definitely in a better place of handling and being a human before sport and having that identity as Blair.
You mentioned before that, talking about, you know, being a father and having kids, is that something you're really looking forward to?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the old phrase, I can't wait to be a father. Yes, I can wait. I've got some amazing things I want to do before I've got kids and travel and do amazing things with my partner. But I cannot wait to. And like, I've always been so excited at the fact that, you know, men share their experiences, like seeing their daughter or their son for the first time, and like, you've never known a love like that. Like, it just changes your world. And weirdly enough, this is probably something a girl would probably say, but I've had like the name picked out for my baby for like 10 years.
Where's my phone? I've got 10 baby names in my phone.
Always,
already chosen.
Yeah, I've always had one since I was about like 16. I'm like, that's good. I'm going to have a daughter and her name's going to be Willow. And if my wife doesn't find that, I'll get a new wife. If she doesn't like it, it was just like, we'll have more kids, she can name them. I just want my Willow. And I don't know, it's just been these things of, one, I've always wanted to be a girl dad and have that experience. And then, it'd be lovely to have a boy as well. But just in general, just be a father and being able to continually grow as a person, as a human. And then, like I said, we can all leave a legacy outside of ourselves in the form of work or passions and stuff. But I think a powerful thing is having a mini you and them having the values and the things that you've taken your whole life to grow and to prosper into them, and then watch them do life and have your youth again through living through their experiences. Yeah,
I'm very lucky that I've got a lot of my friends have kids. And it's funny, like I'll go around to their house and it'll be after work and they're all stressed out, they're all tired, they're all looking like they haven't had any sleep. And I'll go to them, like, how's it all going? And they genuinely mean this. They go, this is the best life ever. And you can see that they're tired, you can see that they're stressed, but them playing with their kids lights them up. He goes, honestly, the bad days, you have a bad day at work, you walk straight through the door, the kids come up to you and it's instantly a good day. It lights them up. And I get a little bit, I get a little bit jealous because me and Jordan don't have kids. We're looking to have kids next year. We've got a few more trips planned. Get them
out of the way.
Get them out of the way first. But it really hits home to us that like they look so happy and so fulfilled. And he's like, it's the greatest thing you'll ever do. Like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do. I keep hearing that. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but it will be the best thing you'll ever do as well. So it's something that me and Jordan are really looking forward to. Yeah, and I've definitely, like I said, that kids are so pure and innocent that they mimic the behaviour. So I want to be in a place where I'm the most discovered and I've had as many experiences that shape the person I am, to the fact that when I get to that stage that I'm in the best place possible to go, hey, like, this is how you should look at life, this is how you should react to situations, life's working for you, not against you. Like, all these things that these kids are going to develop who they are as people and as humans is right from the get-go. They're mimicking and they're demonstrating everything that you do. So yeah, it's definitely a goal to be in the best position. Obviously, we're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be a whole human that, doesn't make mistakes. But like I said, then not associating shame with making mistakes and growing and learning and all these things. But yeah, exciting times for sure. Going back to what you were saying about sort of when you were playing footy and the pressures of playing footy, did you ever have a moment where your mental health really took a downwards turn? And did you ever reach rock bottom? Was there a really dark time for you, or? Yeah. I don't think I ever hit rock bottom, but it was this constant over a few years of just like dragging out, just not performing, just constant, like I said, feeling like a shit person every week and associating all my behaviour as a human and personality as a human with losses and wins and how I went on the weekend. And then, it was periods of time around the draft where, it was whether it was situations or clubs that I was at, I just didn't really fit in as a human or didn't know what that looked like. So then, I was playing the best footy I had at like state level in under 18 championships and all that kind of stuff. And I was playing allies and representative and that kind of stuff. But then we're at different clubs, and then I was back playing development league football in the twos at a local club, and it just didn't make sense. And it was this constant battle with me too. Back then I had quite a large ego, especially coming from Tassie. You're from Tassie, are you? Okay. Yeah, so it would be a place where everyone would pump up your tyres and think the world of you in a really small state where everyone knows everything, and you felt like $1 million and the world was your oyster and you were the shit, And then at the same time, on the flip side of that, when shit went bad, because no one was, everyone would jump off the wagon real quick, and you were left, especially as a 16, 17, 18-year-old with not a lot of tools of life and how to hold yourself. Is the best people look back on my parents are always there, but at the same time I also disregarded everything they said because I thought I had all the answers and I thought all the smoke that other people were pumping up my fucking tyres, that I was the man, that I knew everything, and they were telling me that when shit got bad, my parents had all the answers all along and I disregarded what they said or didn't want to listen to it just based off that. But it was this constant battle of just trying to perform, not performing, and not being where I wanted to be, and then judging myself so harshly and being so mean to myself based off that, because whether it be stats or being a small state, everyone knew how they played on the weekend, or you had a shit game or you weren't performing, and it was this constant battle of trying to be someone that I wasn't for the wrong reasons. And
Yeah, that was tough over a 2-3 year period to just not enjoying football at all and just still chasing getting drafted, but just absolutely hating going and play football every week just because.
You're hating it.
Oh, I mean, I loved it, but I hated it
you
because I just wasn't performing. I just didn't have the passion there because it had all been taken away, it all been stamped out, and it was just this football depression of just not being able to perform. So just piling on top of each other, and then this ultimate goal that I thought was my only purpose in life because it was my only identity. I wasn't getting anywhere close to it. I wasn't performing because of all these things, and that was tough to, like I said, live within a small state, and then being ego driven and being like that is, I was fucking the man if I had a great game, but then I was also a piece of shit if I had a bad game.
Yeah.
And more so, it was a lot more bad games than good games, and it was tough to deal with, especially.
You talked about your sort of internal struggle about, the fear of dying and fear of death and the afterlife and that sort of thing. I think one of my internal struggles that I had to sort of overcome and heal was not showing up as my authentic self. I think we talked about it earlier was, playing footy, you're trying to fit in and be cool. And, I wore a lot of masks. I was masking who I really was. And it got to a point where, later down the track, I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I didn't like. I didn't know anything about me. And it really put me in a downward spiral of like, who am I? Like, I don't know who I am, What's been sort of your experiences with, showing up as your authentic self? Because you seem really confident in who you are as a person now. Has that been a journey to get to where you are? And obviously we're obviously still, putting in the work as humans do, but has that ever been a struggle for you?
Yeah, huge.
Massive, has it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a struggle for everyone, but like even you go to some of my best mates and closest mates, even my partner, like I've been, she's the world to me, but like we've only been together for 4 or 5 months now, and like even the growth that she sees in that amount of time. But like I always, you got to give you credit to yourself and making mistakes and growing and being a human and doing all these things. But yeah, I don't know, the last 8 months, the power of talking to strangers and understanding perspective and what's important in life, and I could be worrying about the stupidest little shit that's keeping me up at night, and then I go and talk to a stranger and they go, hey, like I've lost my partner and we never recovered the body, and like it's just like I never got closure. All this stuff that you can't even imagine. Someone sits there and says that, you're just like, holy shit, like this shit's important. Like I could be doing something with my partner or anyone in life, and it could just end in an instant, or it could be taken away or whatnot, and that just kind of knocks on the door and wakes you the fuck up and go, hey, this is what's important, this is what life's about. Like, don't stress the small stuff, be present, enjoy the moments, like keep growing and that kind of stuff. But yeah, the last 8 months with Through Strangers' Eyes has been incredible for me as a person. But like I said, it's just been this massive journey of finding myself through football and after football, and finding what's next, and then finding a passion, and then understanding why I'm the way that I am. And once I could do that, then I could start to do things accordingly. But yeah, for me, it took doing something crazy like sitting on a park bench looking like a lunatic to talk to strangers to really open my eyes to the world and what's important.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a good quote here that I'll read out that really hit home for me was, typically people's proudest moments are not easy things to do. No one's proud of the easy things to achieve. The irony is that we often want things to be easier, simpler, faster, and more accessible. But the things that make us the most proud, the most happy, the most fulfilled, and the most satisfied are actually things that take a long time, that take passion, perseverance, that take grit. What's your proudest moment?
I wouldn't put it down to a certain moment in particular, but just who I am now. I've come a long way as a person, and I used to be the most immature little shit of a kid that was just so ego focused and just like that's a trap of football and being growing up and being good at sport and being the cool kid at school and the class clown. Like they all go into each other. But I am so proud of the human I am currently and that I'm growing into. And then I'm proudest probably. Obviously, it's very new, but sitting down at that park bench was something that I had to overcome a hell of a lot to do, and the universe has, I think, rewarded me in a way of that. But I'm still on such a path and such a journey that so many incredible things are going to happen. But getting past that fear of judgment and sitting down there has opened up so many doors for me. And funnily enough, that's how I met my partner as well. Is she sit down? Did she? No, that would have been picture
that would have been good, eh? You tell the kids that story.
Yeah, but just like when we had our first interaction, like she had been following the page already, and her first thing she said was basically like, "Oh, like, I really love what you do. Like, thanks for doing what we do."
Oh, I love that.
And if I'd never done that, like, she would have never said that, would have never stuck with me, we never would have furthered the conversation and been where we are today. And it's just like, life's such vibrations and energy, and when you find someone that matches yours and you're in a situation like, also like one of her dreams, and she wants to travel. She wanted to live in a van and travel Australia and do all these things. I'm just like, there's no coincidence that I put myself out there and I did these things. I'm on this path, and that life put you in my life at this stage. Like, that was meant for the both of us. That was meant for you. That was meant for me. And you've just got to be open and receptive and say yes. And like, but like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm so proud of myself for doing that, and just the incredible human that's making me. And it's obviously it's a constant battle to keep getting better and doing things differently and learning and growing. But yeah, from the type of kid I was and what I thought was important a long time ago to where I am now, that's I'm very proud of, and like I hold a lot of that to my parents and the way they raised me and held me to grow as a young man.
Are you always striving for growth? Is that something you chase?
Is that a trap? Like, yes, we want to grow, but like I think the most important thing we can do is be present.
Yeah.
We're always, especially this day and age, it's instant gratification. We're looking for the next viral video and looking for the next $1 million deal, this and that. But like, even the thing that I struggle with now that I'm trying to focus on is like, I work with my best mate. Yes, I don't enjoy the work that I do, but I get to work with my best mate. And that's a blessing in itself. But like, I've got this amazing tour coming up where I get to travel Australia, be free, interview people, have all these amazing experiences. And I find myself living in the future trying to be there rather than being present and enjoying, hey, you're working with your best mate. It might not be glorified work that's great, but like, you get to wake up every day, you get to work with your best mate, you get to see your partner, do all these amazing things, and we're constantly striving to be something else than what we are now.
Yeah.
And yes, I want to grow. Yes, I want to mature. Yes, that's a great thing. But I want to do that in the present. I don't want to be like, oh, imagine the Blair in 6 months' time with this, and what kind of that's the person I want to be. Like, no, I want to be who I am now. I don't know what that's going to be in the future, but if I focus right now and put my heart and soul into things that matter, and for the right reason, for doing things for the right reasons, the right outcomes will come in place, that I'll be proud of that person that I grow into in 6 months' time, and then 6 months' time after that. Like, yes, I'm striving for that, but I'm present.
What are some of the things that you need in your life to be the best version of yourself?
I said this to you earlier. The biggest gift someone can give you is a mirror to yourself. Yeah. You need someone that, for me, it's my partner now that I found that in her and my parents, both. There's no strings attached there. Well, yeah, there is, but those people will unconditionally tell you who you are and what you need and what you're going through, whether you choose to listen to it or not. That's up to you. But they're the most purest forms as your partner and your parents or siblings and stuff. Is they're always going to be with you. They're there for the long run. If it's a partner for the long term, or what it might be, but especially your parents and your friends and family, there's no conditions there. They will be in your life forever until, it's not the time, that passes. So they will always tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that's the most powerful thing you can have in friends, family, partner, is they'll tell you what's right for you, even when you don't want to hear it. And that's what you need to be a good person. And, it's taken me, like I said, with my partner now, is she calls my bluff and my bullshit on situations and my behaviour, and I'll tend to ignore them with friends or something like that, and with mates, and you'll just laugh it off. I'll be like, oh yeah, whatever, dickhead. But when it comes to your partner and you find someone that you see yourself with and that you value over a lot of things, is that you'll take a good look at yourself and you go, hey, this behaviour isn't acceptable, or I need to change this, and it's not changing for someone else. It's changing those behaviours that you need to change to be a better version of yourself. So that's definitely a huge one. And then like we all say, your environment's huge. Good old quote, show me your 5 best friends and I'll tell you the kind of person you are. But that's in everything. If you want to be a better version of such and such, surround yourself with successful people or older people or people that are where you want to be. Because, you can't be successful in an area if you're hanging out with, people that have no, ambition to be in that position, or they're just, living life and doing their own little journey. Like, that's all well and great, but yeah, your environment's so important. So put yourselves around people that you want to be like.
What has this journey, this, chatting to strangers, what has it taught you about us as humans?
That we're all humans.
We're all humans. We all want to be heard.
Yeah, we've got this society and life and everything tells us how to act and be and feel and to be someone else, and it's just this constant rat race of trying to be something that we're not and fit in and everything. It's just stacked on top of each other. Like, life's fucking hard. Life is so hard, and especially social media and expectations and comparing and even small things like magazines with young girls seeing people in magazines. Oh, that's what I should be like. Or we've got the world's best psychologists and people trying to hit us with dopamine and distract us and pull us out of reality and away from human connection to be all online and compare and judge and buy products, and it's all for money. But if you can strip back all of that and go down your local park and sit on a bench and have a conversation with someone you don't know with no strings attached, it will change your fucking life.
It's interesting too. Like, it's we're so connected in so many ways through social media, and you can talk to anyone on the other side of the world, but I feel as like we're also so disconnected with each other as well, that even that human connection that you're doing with people, as simple as chatting to someone one-on-one in person, is something that we're longing for because we're so, on our devices so much. How do you find balance in not only your day-to-day work, but also finding balance on, because it's something that I sort of struggle finding balance with, is posting on social media, but also trying to get off social media?
Weirdly enough, I spend a lot of time with my partner and friends.
Yeah.
And even a real good one I've done since I met my partner is we go for a beach walk and we don't take our phones.
Yeah, nice.
And it's just the power of being present. It's like, if you had your phone in your pocket, you'd get a vibration, or you'd check the time, or that's all trying to take you away from being present. Like, this whole world is developed to take us away from being present. Like, and if you can do small things like that, like going for a beach walk, not taking your phones, not needing to be anywhere, just go and connect and talk, is so powerful. And it's just this thing of like, it's almost strange when you see someone with a, not that many people do it, but if you saw someone with a sign saying, "Hey, I just want to talk," it's like strange. Like, you'd be like, what's this?
What's
like
this Fruit Loop doing? Yeah.
Like, it's,
yeah.
we've lost so much of a sense of community because of social media and the way things have gone. It's just like, the one thing that I've said with this trip, I can't wait. I spoke to Harmony about it, my partner, and I've just been like, I can't wait to pull up to some random town with people I don't know and go to the local pub and play some pool and just talk to some old people and anyone just in general, or just about life, and phones be off and just be connecting. Like, just go to these rural towns and everywhere, and just human experience and connection is incredible. But like I said, and like you said, we're so disconnected that we're pulled out of that world. And as soon as we dabble our toes in it, we get a notification, then we're distracted again. We're looking at something, we're on social media and something that doesn't even matter. So, it's this constant battle of being connected but disconnected. So I like to post, and then phone goes straight off, and I'm back being present with my partner and that kind of stuff, or whatever that may look like.
What advice would you give someone who is afraid to share their story? Tricky one.
Not really tricky.
Not really tricky?
It is tricky because it's our internal voice telling us, focus on the negatives and everything that we can.
Yeah.
But like I experienced, like you experienced, as soon as you do it and share it, like, I don't know what the situation, as long as it's positive and you're trying to get better out of it, like, people will react positively, and everything that you're thinking, people are not thinking like they're. Yeah,
so true. Like, so true.
It's incredible what we just amplify everything and focus on the negatives. But I just love this, thinking with this, like, what if it all goes to plan? What if it all goes well? Like, the what if in a positive rather than a negative, because we highlight all the negatives so often. What if I do this and they think this, or then they message me about this, or then someone shares it to one of their friends and goes, "Oh, look at this idiot." Like, if you can get all that out from momentarily and just go like, what if this turns out better than I could ever expect it? And it was the same thing I did with Through Strangers' Eyes, is like, I did things for the right reasons and the right outcome came of it. Like, there was always the thought in my head that, oh, this could blow up, it could go viral or whatnot, because it's authentic and it's real and I'm doing it for the right reasons. But there was also the thought of, if this doesn't go to plan, that I've spent $500 on gear, I get to sit down the beach and I get to reflect on my own shit and watch a beautiful sunset. Like, I haven't lost anything.
It's a win-win, isn't it?
I can lose everything by not sitting down on this park bench and never been exposed to the experiences or the incredible conversations I have, and then the potential for it to blow up on social media, and I could get out of the 9 to 5 that I'm working and I could do something that really lights me up. But I started that whole thing from finding something that lit me up inside and that was for the right reasons. And then it was just like, all right, I'll aim for the stars here. If it doesn't happen, the worst that happens here is I had to spend $500, which will come back. And I got to sit down and have these experiences. But just put yourself out there and be vulnerable if you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And the right outcomes will tend to come, but don't focus on the negatives. Try and say, what if it all turns out better than I ever could have expected?
And that's the thing. It's like that fear that we were talking about before, is that what I realized with my fear is that once I started leaning into that fear and just, there's a great quote by Alex Hormozi, is that fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. So it looks like this big ocean that you're going to step into, but when you step into it, it's, you're not going to drown, you're not going to die. And once you keep pushing forward, you realize all the success and all this fulfillment that is on the other side of fear. So I switched the narrative now. I used to run away from fear. I used to get away from fear. I used to, don't want any part of it. But now I only do things when I feel that fear. So when this podcast, I was like, oh no, not going to do this. And I was like, hang on a second. This is this fear that you keep running away from. How about you lean into it and see where it takes you? So now I've just switched that narrative now that I won't do anything now until I get that fear in my stomach and I'm like, oh, this is the sign. This is actually what I'm meant to be doing. And I kind of use it as an indicator now, which has helped me so much in my life. There's you did a really good post on your Instagram that I actually want to just quickly run through, if that's all right with you. It's your 10 steps, your 10 lessons that you've learnt so far. Do you mind going through these quickly?
We go for it.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
So number 1, small steps are the biggest steps.
Yep.
Explain.
Yep. So it's the same with the fear of judgment, the fear of like everything. It's just like the small step for me was getting out of my car and sitting on the park bench and just seeing what happens. It didn't have to be this big leap to get somewhere. It was just like, what do I have to do right now to get myself on this path with the momentum? It wasn't, I can do all these big things and this big goal. It was, right, ideal world, this goes viral. It helps me do what I want to do and impact others. The small step was just sit on the park bench, put your signs up.
Get out of the car.
Get out of the car. Like, that's the small step. Yeah. And then whether it's mental health or whatever it might be just going for that coffee or opening up to a friend or going to the gym, getting yourself out of that rut. It's that small step. It doesn't have to be, if I go to the gym and I do this and then I'm going to be a new person, I'm going to be healed. Like, no, this is going to be a journey. This is going to be something you have to go through. But that initial first step is always the hardest because it's what gets you out of that rut. Is, you might have a bad week and you haven't been to the gym and then you get back in the gym and you just go that once and you're like, oh shit, that feels good. I think I can go again tomorrow. No, I'm better held now rather than trying to aim for that big.
The big thing, I think people underestimate those small incremental changes that you can make in your life, and they always go, I want to go to the gym 5 times a week, for however long, and it's kind of like, just go 3.
Just go 1.
Go 1 for a year.
And then try and go again.
And, just build up to it. Time doesn't heal, number 2.
I get this so often down the beach when I talk to people that have experienced grief.
Yeah.
Is everyone that hasn't experienced it or wants to generalize the healing process will say, time heals, it'll get better in time. It's a double-edged sword. Yes, time heals, but no, it doesn't. You get better at carrying the weight. And there's a beautiful quote that a young lady, Holly, that shared her story with grief, spoke to me about, and it was the analogy of the rock in the pocket. And basically, that rock's always going to be in your pocket. It doesn't matter where you go, what you do. The weight of that will always be in your pocket. But some days it'll feel heavier and some days it'll feel lighter. And over time, you'll develop a bit more muscle in that right leg where that rock is, and it'll feel lighter. It'll eventually get lighter and you'll learn to deal with it. You'll learn to live with it. You'll never get over it. You'll never get through grief and be like, hey, I don't feel grief anymore, or I don't think about that person. That rock will always there, and you always feel it in your pocket, but it'll just get lighter.
Yeah.
Over time, you'll learn to deal with it. You won't heal, like time doesn't heal, but you'll learn to live with it better every day.
I love that. Number 3, don't live in fear of judgment. That's what we've covered a lot today. Covered that one, haven't we?
Fairly well.
Number 4, kindness is free. And I really do love that one. It's what I've learned out in the mines too, is that, we all have value. We all can offer value. Don't that judgment of looking someone on face value and judging them straight away. It's I always take the time and my mates make fun of me all the time about it, because I'll go out and get a coffee or go get a drink or something, and then I'm chatting to someone I've met at the table for a while, and then all of a sudden, like, we're friends, and where's Ellie gone? And they always take the piss out of me.
Yeah.
But I love that. Like, everyone's got a story to tell, and that kindness is free. It's so easy. It's so easy to be a nice person. It's more effort to be a fuckwit, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got more fuckwits these days than kind people.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're so consumed in our own life and this own bubble that just encaptures us, that we don't realise that, the actions of other people and the way they're feeling or the way they say things is generally a deflection of what they're going through. It's not actually, targeted at you, and it's just this thought, and this kindness is free. If, be kind before anything, because you don't know what someone else is going through, These people that come sit on my bench, you wouldn't look at them twice and go, they've just experienced losing someone, or their grandpa, or they've lost their brother in an accident. Like, you wouldn't say that. And then you might approach the situation, be rude or do something because you're having a shit day. And then that's a flow-on effect to them and how they're feeling. But if you just start the conversation or anything with just a bit of kindness and understanding that everyone's got their own shit going on, that, it's free and it's easy, and it can help a lot of people. And
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Number 5, just listen. Talked about that.
Yeah.
How to be a good listener.
Yeah.
Just shut up and listen.
Yeah, it's just having no ulterior motives or trying to say your own shit. Just hold some space, even 5 or 10 minutes. Just shut the fuck up and listen.
Because that's what most people are looking for. They don't want to be told what to do. They just want to unload it, don't they? Just vent. Number 6, scary and uncomfortable is where we find the most growth.
Yeah.
Have you found that as well in your life? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, perfect example is going down the park bench. It was all scary and uncomfortable. I didn't want to do it, and I put it off, and then I did it, and now my life's changed forever. Yeah. Simple as that. Like, it's as easy as that. But if you let that dictate and rule, like you said, with it being a mile wide and an inch deep, then you'll run away from anything that ever scares you, and you never get growth. Whereas if you just dip your toes in and go for it, you'll get that growth. Number
7, money isn't everything.
Yeah. I had one that changed me down at the beach. It was a Father's Day set up down on Father's Day, and she spoke about how her father had lived his whole life working his ass off, sunset to sunrise, whatever it might have been, like 12 hours a day, and immigrated over here and had a beautiful family, and then got to the point where he was retiring and he got dementia, and now he can't experience anything that he's worked hard for in life. And we strive to have the car and the fancy house and work all these long hours to have money to rule and dictate our life, and we miss all the experiences and all the small things right in front of us that mean the most. That's more valuable than money will ever be. It's the moments and memories. So yeah, it was just this reminder, especially in that interview, that it's like, hey, like, you could work for 60 years and work yourself to the bone, and you can get to it and you go, I can finally relax now. And then something like dementia comes and takes your brain away from you, and then you've just lost, you spent all that time working and all that time living.
It's like that hustle culture that you see a lot on social media, is this like, 3 hours sleep, no sleep, grind. And it's just like, for what? Number 8, be grateful every time you see someone you love. And that's really hit home for me, because I've only started to do this probably since the start of this year, is that when I say goodbye to someone that I love, I say I love you. And I know this sounds a little bit dark, but I'm saying that as that's the last time I'm going to see them. And it gives me closure. It gives me the sense of fact that if I do not see them again, the last thing I've said to them is I love you, and I meant it. And if I don't see them again, that's, I can't live with it, but I feel some sort of closure there. Is that what you live by as well?
Yeah, these are a lot of these are lessons I've taken off other people from down the beach and then stories I've had. But it's this thing that a lot of people will have a fight with someone that they love and that means the world to them, and then they'll end on a bad note, and then life being life is unfortunately people get taken away in an instant, and if that's the last thing that that person heard, they'll never hold it against you, but you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life, and it's just this it's just this cruel cycle, and it's just like if you can, like you said, if you can just say I love you before I leave, then it's powerful because life can be taken away so quickly.
So quickly. Last couple, number 9, love hard and love wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Dive in. If you're going to do it all the way, do it all the way.
Yeah, and it ties back into being authentic and just being, you know, the pure version of yourself. If you're going to, like, it's hard because especially with breakups when we're younger and so many things is we want to not open ourselves up, but people will never truly trust you and love you how you do if you are closed off and have your walls up and dip your toes in and not, you know, do the whole thing. So, yes, it's going to hurt. Love hurts and everything in life hurts. It means something to you, but that's the only way you'll find stuff that lasts and means the world to you is if you go after it the same amount.
I love that. Number 10, it's okay not to be okay. Massively. Especially, you know, with men and mental health, it's, I think what is the narrative like? We've got a 10-year age gap. When I was sort of coming through, the stigma was still massive when I was sort of coming through that. You know, I'm 34 now. My group of friends for the last 4 years we probably hit 30 that were all very, very comfortable talking about our struggles, which I love. I really, really love it. But in my early 20s, that was not around. Not even the footy culture was not around. What's it like?
Yeah, I'd agree. It's
getting better.
It's always slowly getting better, but it's never enough. Like there's some stupid stat that we'll lose like 350 men before Christmas from now to suicide.
It's frightening.
It's terrible, and that all flows back into the stigma or feeling weak or not being able to talk and that kind of stuff. So it's just this understanding that it's okay not to be okay. Like, we're all human, we all experience these things. It's like, if we can find each other when we're not okay and just say, hey, like, I'm not doing okay, like, hey, I'm here for you, like, let's do this together, like, you're not a burden. And that's completely okay because we're in it together and we're all humans and we're all experienced, we all feel, and I'd much rather you be here than you suffer in silence and then I have to wake up one day and you're not here.
Exactly, 100%. What does the future look like? I know we talked about it before, the Australian tour.
Yeah.
Are you coming to the sunny coast?
Yes.
You are?
I'll be in the sunny coast. I'll be back into the tour. So
So what direction are you going?
Going south.
Going south around,
Yeah, so I do about a month in each at this stage. So
same premise, park benches.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a mobile set up with the van where we can have people outside. I'm also doing like got a good mate that I met through the page. I haven't met him in person yet, but he's been really supportive, and he owns a coffee brand down in Melbourne. He's donating a coffee machine and giving us our own blend of coffee.
Really?
Through strangers' eyes on it and everything. And we're going to do pull up the park benches and high traffic areas or down the beach or something in the morning and just offer free coffee.
Love that.
And people will just be able to like leave a kind note in the inside of a coffee cup or like share a message with strangers or on the video or whatever it might look like in exchange for just a coffee. And it's just like have this little community area set up outside the van where it's just human connection and just sharing and just, you know, we've got the resources and availability to share a coffee. So just give that to people and just exchange human connection. So little things like that. Yeah, it'll be about a month in each state and just drive. I wanted it to be in the van. The more I spoke to charities and non-for-profits and stuff, it was like, oh, you know, because it was blowing up and it still is. And it's like, oh, where do I go? What do I do? Like, how do I? And the more I did that, the less authentic it felt. I was like, yeah, I could do that, but that's going away from a lot of these values that I stand for and what the page stands for and where the value is found in it. So I was like, all right, if I could have a van and the same tripod and a couple of signs and just be able to kind of drive and see these people, because I was getting thousands of messages of people saying, hey, like, I want you in Adelaide and Melbourne and Sydney and all these areas that I wasn't. They were just like, oh, I wish this existed here. It was like, how can I capture that and still keep it the most purest form and authentic? So, I'll just get people to reach out to the page and say, hey, like, come visit our little town and I'll, you know, share a bit of video, maybe a history of the town or a few of the people and share some stories of the people in town and then head on to the next one and, do about a month in each state. And, head around all around Australia. So
exciting. How good.
Yeah, there was always, you know, in the best way for the page, it was always better to go through Sydney and Melbourne first with the more exposure to radio stations and news outlets and all that kind of stuff. And and people. So try and build off all that momentum to, you know, ultimately, like, the bigger the platform, the bigger the impact for me. It's not about the followers. It's nothing about that. But it's just like, if I've got 500,000 followers, that's, you know, a shitload more people that are seeing these videos, and they're potentially being impacted to them when they're going through a shit time in their life. So
100%.
it's trying to get the momentum and just go around Oz, and then got a New Zealand tour lined up after Oz. So that'll be next on the tour. And like I spoke to you before, I got my partner's wedding in Italy, so might even take the signs and the tripod up there and sit on a few little park benches over there. But it's a beautiful thing. It's very universal, and it's just connecting between humans and sharing a bit of advice on life and a bit of story. So you can fortunately do that everywhere. So the big goal would be able to combine my love for travel and wanting to see all parts of the world to then being able to capture, like, it'd be a dream to go to places around the world where they've got small communities and remote communities where you can share their ways of life, and they're off grid, and they're going, you know, like, these are the things that are important in community. And like, I had a beautiful story the other day, and it was a guy that he'd gone traveling, and he said that, you know, they're in this village, and whenever a group, you know, a couple got married, that the whole village would build their house for them. So
really?
that was their, you know, I don't imagine it being a big brick house that we've got here, but their sense of community was, anytime someone got married, everyone would band together as a community to build them their house. That was their wedding present.
How beautiful
is that? The next people that got married, those people that just got their house built, they would join in, they would all build their house. So just being able to share footage and insights and experiences from all around the world with different cultures, and be able to bring them back to people, and just say, hey, like, this is the 1% of, you know, like, you know, in Japan or somewhere, like, it's 1% of their culture or something they do out in this community that, you know, we could add into this, or we could, you know, start a community group or a charity doing this, or whatever it might look like. So I'm like, I'd love to travel after this and just keep experiencing and sharing and live through moments and memories.
Well, I hope you know that you're doing that same thing with our community. You're doing that making that same impact. Some quick fire questions to finish off. You can answer these as quick or as long as you want. If you could go back to a time in your life, where would you go and why?
I think I would go back to, not that I really remember it, but I think I'd love to experience going back to be a little kid again, and having no sense of expectations or right or wrong, or what was, you know, like, what was expected or judgment or anything, and just be able to live as a kid where there's no worries, there's no, like, adulthood is amazing and beautiful, but just to be able to go back then to just enjoy the purest form of life, where you're just running around in the street with other kids from the street, and just, like, no sense of time, no shoes, probably naked running around, just, like, there was no sense of what society shaped you or told you had to be. It was just, hey, like,
completely free and at peace.
Free and just live life, like, however you wanted to, with no right or wrong. Like, that would be beautiful, I think.
That's a great answer. What do you look for in a friend?
Especially now, authenticity. You know, loyalty is a good one, something you can count on. And then, like I said before, someone that will tell me what I need to hear rather than what I want to hear. You know, people come and go very quickly these day and age, but the ones that share a lot of your own views and values will stick around for a lot longer, and the ones that tell you how you need to act or to feel rather than what you want to hear are very powerful, and the ones that you should keep around the most. So real people and real authenticity, I think.
Best advice you've ever received?
Ooh, I love saying this one. Is just like, it wouldn't be from a person, but it was from a movie, weirdly enough. But it was like, it's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
That's what it is. It's not, but it is.
Yeah.
And it's this constant battle that life and everything in social expectations in society wants to tell you that it's not that easy to go sit down on a park bench or to go do stuff that lights you the fuck up inside.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is it's that easy. If you just do the thing they said you couldn't do, it's literally that easy. And that's so powerful and freeing that, like, that's shaped with we're on a floating rock, and you're the tiniest little speck of nothingness that no one will ever, like, we go home and think that people are thinking about us, and like they saw us, screaming a song in the middle of Surfers Paradise, and they go, "Oh my God, could you see that guy? He was like so." No one cares.
Yeah.
Like in the nicest way possible, no one cares. So live life the way you want to do it. If someone says you can't do it, go do it. Like it's that easy.
I love that. Last two. How have you defined success?
I couple this up with what football was. Like success for me with football was always the wins. It was always the good stats. It was always the medals and the personal achievements. But the real success when I got to football not being a priority anymore was the people that I met along the way. It was the experience that I had. And it was like this constant, trying to get all these awards and trying to make AFL and do all these different things. But when I look back and get to the position where I am now, where football's not a thing, it's just like I've got so many beautiful people I can call upon, or I can message or talk to, and I can walk past them in 10 years and be like, oh, remember that, or remember this. It's just like life is experiences and shared experiences and moments, and it's just like that's success to me. Is just like is connecting with people and being someone that people want to connect with and that have got time for you. I think if you can invest in being a person that people want to be around, that's success. And then, like I said, it's just living your life to the fullest and what matters to you and doing it for you, not someone else.
Love that. Last one. Who or what inspires you?
My parents are my heroes.
They're my heroes too.
Yeah. Before I met my partner and before a few things, I'd been like, people were like, oh, what's like love to you? And I'd be like, oh, I don't know, like I don't, I haven't really felt like deep love in the form of a partner. But if I reword the question to what is love to me, is I had parents that held me in every facet of what I was. They gave me every opportunity I could within reason. I wasn't spoiled. I wasn't like given the world. It was like given the world in the sense that no matter what I wanted to do, I had their support. But it was always, you've got us to fall back onto if something doesn't go well. Go and fuck it up. Go and make mistakes. Go and strive for the best things and the biggest things you can. Dream big and then dream bigger. It was always like, we've got you. And they told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear, but they held me in every aspect of that. And for me, that's what love means, and it's unconditional. It was just, whether it was my first business that I tried or whatnot, it was like if I wanted money for them, it was like, hey, like, we'll give you the money. You don't have to get it from a bank. There's no interest, but like, where's your business plan? Like, show us how you're going to pay this back, how you're going to use this money, what's it going towards? It was like, we've got you, but, you need to be resourceful, need to do things yourself for yourself and do them for the right reason. It's just this beautiful things that, my mum and my dad are just everything to me, and I just look up to them in every facet of the world. And they've been married 28 years, and they're just, no one's perfect, but they're just the example of what, I strive to, and then I try to be better than that, like in every aspect that I can, and be a better person, the best person I can for me. But yeah, they're absolutely my heroes, and they just literally gave me the world to be my oyster. And, if you want to try something, go try it. If it's not going to work out, we're here for you. Like, we'll pay your bills for a little bit until you get back on your feet. Like, whatever it might look back, emotional support, financial support, it was, hey, we're here.
Yeah.
Go do it, go try it. Don't live in the fact that you didn't do it or you were too scared to, or, and I'm a big believer that, especially at a young age, like I've got no mortgage, I've got no responsibility, I've got no kids. There's no better time to go and fuck it up and try all these things and make mistakes and learn lessons to then get to the point where I'm in a place where I'm like, all right, I've learned so much, or I've got this successful business because I wasn't worried about the outcome of money or thinking I couldn't do it because I couldn't afford it. I went after it, and I had my parents there to fall back onto.
100%. This is your time, mate. This is your time.
Hopefully.
Thanks so much for coming on today, mate. I really appreciate the chat. I've absolutely loved it, and I'm super proud of you, mate, for everything that you've done, for the work that you're doing. Yeah, look on life. You're mature, way beyond your years. I wish I was emotionally as mature as you when I was 24. But again, mate, lovely to meet you. And I'll be looking forward to seeing Through Strangers' Eyes in the future. And hopefully you pop into the Sunny Coast, we can catch up.
Yeah, appreciate it, mate. It's awesome to be here. And yeah, I'm sure we can do a follow-up epi up in the Sunny Coast.
I've got a couple of beaches that we can go to.
Yeah, absolutely. We might jump in your sauna at home and
100%.
and have a chat. So it'd be good, mate. And I appreciate being here and having the chat with you.
Thanks, brother. Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Mind Your Head. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really supports the show and helps others discover us. Don't forget to join us on Instagram and TikTok at mindyourhead.podcast.